Coming up on Inside Lehman, your electronic devices have a lot to tell you. We'll show you the science behind the machines that are quietly communicating all around you.
Do you feel it's hard to keep up? Too much stress maybe? Some interesting tools for coping are coming up.
Plus, take your choice. Hot metal, hot wire, or hot ideas blended together in a classic way. We'll look at some innovative ways to create art.
So sit back and relax because Inside Lehman starts now.
Hello and welcome to Inside Lehman. I'm Sereane.
And I'm Maurice Mercado, and we're coming to you from the beautiful Lehman College Art Gallery. Thanks for joining us.
You know, Maurice, we live in a world where we expect technology to help make our lives easier. But how can math and computer science help us accomplish that?
Well, reporter Nancy Oyuela shows us how.
We live in a society where we rely on technology from day to day, whether it's in the kitchen, the office, or the classroom. Computers and fax machines talk to each other. People sometimes make phone calls over the internet. And laptop computers easily connect with wireless networks.
But why do we need computer technology so much? There are microchips inside everyday objects like these. This technology allows machines to respond to commands and complete tasks that make our lives much easier.
Professor Robert Feineman, the chair of the Mathematics and Computer Science Department at Lehman College, says there's a lot happening behind the scenes.
Well, there are many aspects of modern-day life that involve computers, whether people even realize it or not. So they're becoming, even the small phones that people use involve computers. Cars involve computers. Computers are everywhere. Computers are managing various kinds of things that people don't even realize are being managed by computers.
As new technology develops, we become even more dependent on it to the point that it is almost a necessity.
My cell phone has become a necessity to me. It's probably one of the only way to keep in contact.
Payphones, I don't think payphones are any good anymore.
This little robot doesn't perform any vital task, but it does serve as a valuable teaching tool. Nancy Griffith, professor of mathematics and computer science at Lehman College, specializes in computer networking. She develops ways for machines to interact with other devices, or even people.
Computers have their own language for communicating. They have a set of rules for talking to each other called a protocol.
Watch how this simple robot moves around gathering objects and disposing of them. It is using a sensor to stay inside the black tape outline on the table. Eventually, it will find all of the pieces, in the same way that an automated vacuum cleaner will cruise around your home, picking up dust. Until it receives instructions in the form of computer programming, the robot will not do anything. The programming that makes this possible came from a Lehman College math and computer science student.
You will see when the robot is running that some part of the code is not doing exactly what it's supposed to do, and that's when you modify it to make it do something that you want it to, or add more code to compensate what it's doing.
In order to create projects like these, Lehman College professor Catherine St. John teaches students the principles of protocol design.
The robots are made by Lego. They're usually used as toys. They're called Lego Mindstorm robots. We actually use them with a different set of software than what's shipped with them. We use a version of the C computer programming language. And the reason we do this is so that the students, when they learn to program our robots, can then use the same language and same skills for programming real computers.
As computers develop a greater capacity to communicate with each other, what can we expect in the near future?
We're going to find more and more household tasks that simple robots will be able to do. I think they're going to be very popular.
Computers are involved in everything that we're involved in. Cars have computerized engine systems.
Modern cars on the road right now have onboard computers that monitor engine performance,
make adjustments, and even remind you to change the oil after a certain number of miles. That's further proof that we can all benefit from machines that communicate with each other and share the information with us. Nancy Oyuela, Inside Lehman.
Art speaks to us in unique ways. Just like learning, there are many perspectives. And when you combine art with the learning of other subjects, it can lead to some creative techniques.
Inside Lehman's Kate O'Donnell tells us more about aesthetic education.
It is widely thought that exposure to the arts allows children to perform better in courses such as math and science. Although the subject areas are different, the idea is to use art to promote discussion and greater dialogue between teacher and student. Many children are deprived of an opportunity to enjoy the arts. This may often be due to a lack of school funding and decisions that the arts must take a back seat to more traditional core subjects. Students majoring in education at Lehman College are now being taught how to make the arts a vital part of the classroom experience.
Aesthetic education helps students and faculty and teachers experience works of art at different levels. It fosters deep noticing. It increases awareness of what art is actually all about and provides an opportunity for lots of discussion.
Since the late 1990s, Lehman College has collaborated with the Lincoln Center Institute so that artists and educators can work together.
We most recently have begun to work with Lincoln Center, and they send us what they call a teaching artist, someone who's a specialist in drama or music or art or whatever the art form might be. And that person and a faculty person sit down together and work through how conceivably they might integrate an art form with a particular course.
And the concern was that many of the teachers coming into the profession grew up in the schools when the arts were not part of the formal curriculum, the 70s and 80s to speak, and that we felt that we needed to come up with a way to reach that group, because once they were in the classroom, we actually might have people who know less about the arts than the current generation of teachers.
Professor Andrea Zakin is an art educator who applies aesthetic education in the classroom.
I think the driving force for doing aesthetic education is that people of all levels, including kids, should learn about works of art. It's part of their world, it's part of their culture, their inheritance, and it's another way of seeing the world.
Secret History is one example of an art form produced at Lincoln Center Institute. This theater production tells the tale of immigrants who came from different parts of the world to begin new lives in America. If you take a look at some of the ideas that develop in the aesthetic education process, you'll find that many participants are reflective. They draw on their personal experiences as they interpret art.
Part of the idea of aesthetic education is that it's connecting something in an art form to your life, to who you are and who you want to be.
One of the important themes you can find in aesthetic education is that teachers are not only providing students with facts and figures. They become more than just witnesses. They experience what they study and continue their own journeys of self-discovery. Kate O'Donnell, Inside Lehman.
We all have to deal with the pressures of everyday life. Sometimes it may be overwhelming. Other times it may be a momentary blip on the radar screen. Inside Lehman's Lou Gonzalez tells us about some interesting techniques we can use to cope with stress.
It is there all the time. When you study for your final exam, when you're at work, even when you're at home. It surrounds us, and some of us are not even fully aware of its presence. It is stress. And if you don't get a handle on it, stress could have a serious impact on your health. One turning point in life is going to college. Many say it's not an easy transition with new responsibilities and more choices. Psychology professor David Manier is studying the effects of stress and the role it plays in the lives of college students.
Most students talk about the academic stress as being the main source of stress for them.
Stress, if not dealt with, can have an adverse effect on a person's health, weakening the immune system and even becoming a catalyst that can accelerate the progression of diseases.
So we want to help people learn positive ways to do stress management, right?
As a certified therapeutic recreation specialist, Lehman College professor Robin Kunstler knows the dangers that stress can create for the body and mind.
Physically, a lot of people just may not even realize that stress is causing headaches, muscle aches, backaches, fatigue, feeling tired, wanting to eat too much, maybe not wanting to eat.
One of the best ways to relieve stress is recreation. Professor Kunstler also teaches students who aspire to be recreation specialists and physical therapists.
And we talk about different illnesses, disabilities, health conditions that anybody may experience, and how people can incorporate recreation into their lives, whether to improve their health and their functioning as well as to improve their quality of life.
Therapeutic recreation does not only include exercise. It can be painting, acting, or any activity that puts you in a place of comfort and reduces stress. Many see therapeutic recreation as a viable means of relieving stress. But what if you don't have the time? For the person on the go, there's always the 1-minute vacation.
But what a 1-minute vacation is just to sit in a relaxed, comfortable position. You can do this in a class, only when the professor tells you to. You can do this on a bus. You can do this in a restaurant. You can do this at home. And it only takes a minute, but it has certain value. If you want to take off your glasses, if you want to stretch out, whatever you want to do. And what I'm going to do is ask you to close your eyes and just to completely sort of relax, let your mind go. If you want to think about something, if you don't want to think about anything.
The 1-minute vacations that she does, those are good because sometimes you just need a few minutes to yourself and just not think about anything that's going on and just try to relax and just refresh yourself and come back to whatever you're dealing with.
We can't avoid stress because it's a part of our lives. But the better we manage it, the happier we are. The key is finding the method that is right for you. Lou Gonzalez, Inside Lehman.
Still ahead on Inside Lehman, taking on some tough issues on stage. We'll take you back in history with a man who has a date with eternity. And how about some heavy metal? Add a creative spark and we'll show you what happens.
Lehman College, brilliance in the Bronx.
Welcome back to Inside Lehman. Set in the South during the 1940s, the play entitled A Lesson Before Dying takes a hard look at the realities of racism and social injustice which African Americans faced at that time. And we see it through the eyes of a young man who has just been sentenced to the electric chair. Robert Dumais has more.
At the end of this story, this man will die. However, A Lesson Before Dying tells us more about the man Jefferson became than it does about the abrupt end of his life. Reaching deep into themselves to portray the level of gravity that this play commands is one of the hardest things for a cast to do, but it is precisely what the students of the Lehman Theater program are striving for. In this play, Jefferson is condemned to death for a murder he did not commit. Jefferson's sense of self faded away when authorities decided he was no better than an animal.
They called him a hog.
They called him what?
You know if you've been at the trial.
Who called Jefferson a hog? Ironically, only weeks before his death, a family member arranges for a teacher to show Jefferson how to live like a man so he will know how to die.
I have to execute this boy, not torture him. I'd rather watch a dumb hog die in that chair than an upset, out of his mind, aggravated boy frying it. I don't think you're gonna make him understand anything, Professor.
The play's serious undertones provide an examination of the social injustice and racism that African Americans faced in the South during the 1940s. The man who was given the difficult task of helping Jefferson prepare for death quickly begins to learn some tough lessons of his own.
What does that have to do with you?
exactly what I'm trying to stop. Right here, right now. I'm trying to make responsible young men and young women who don't wind up where Jefferson is.
Grant Wiggins, portrayed by theater major Maurice Dean, has his own struggles to deal with as his character shifts from a self-deprecating, embittered person to a socially cognitive and morally understanding teacher.
It was hard. It's like the biggest emotional roller coaster you can play with, from being upset to being happy in 2 seconds. So it took a lot to get used to it, because I'm normally not a person that gets real angry. And I was afraid to get that angry on stage because I didn't think I would be able to control it.
A Lesson Before Dying delves into other issues besides racism. Grant Wiggins and Reverend Ambrose, portrayed by Jason Smith, debate what should be most important to Jefferson before he dies, his mind or his soul.
Did it get around to God?
No, sir.
If you're talking to a man about to meet God, what else is more important?
In the middle of all these internal and external struggles sits Jefferson, the man condemned to the electric chair. Convinced that he is a hog, he pushes the play to another level. Jefferson, portrayed by theater major Jorge Alvarez, is not just the protagonist. He is the personification of everyone victimized by bigotry. Selecting a production of such intensity for her directorial debut at Lehman College, Susan Suter knew just what an ambitious goal she had set for herself and her actors.
Once they processed it, Jorge Alvarez, who played Jefferson, he'd go, you know, I had a eureka moment about that. And it was like all the things you'd been doing had somewhere in his unconscious come together.
These theater students proved that determination, collaboration, and respect for their craft can make it all come together.
All the hard work, you really don't even think about it. It's all joy because it's what you love to do.
Robert Dumais, Inside Lehman.
An anthropologist returns from a tough tour of duty in the Gulf Coast.
And a cross-country runner right here at Lehman goes for the gold again.
It's all part of our Lehman Minute.
Dr. Vincent Stefan, a forensics expert in the Lehman College Department of Anthropology, brought his experience to Mississippi as a member of the Disaster Mortuary Operation Response Team. He assisted in the recovery and identification of victims of Hurricane Katrina. Dr. Stefan is also a consultant to medical examiners around the tri-state area who are investigating the causes and circumstances of victims' deaths. Television viewers around the city now enjoy a new CUNY TV Spanish language program entitled Nueva York. The half-hour show focuses on politics, art, culture, and traditions of New York's Spanish-speaking communities and provides subtitles in English for broader reach. Dr. Patricio Larzundi, the chair of Lehman's Department of Journalism, Communication, and Theater, co-hosts with Mexican novelist and critic Carmen Boyosa. Dr. Larzundi, a journalist and writer originally from Chile, has worked as a features editor for United Press International and is an editor-in-chief of a daily Spanish-language newspaper. And Lehman's cross-country track star Amy Rustin has another reason to celebrate. The U.S. Track and Field Coaches Association has named her as the NCAA Division III Indoor Track Athlete of the Year. In addition to this national recognition, Rustin was also named as Atlantic Region Indoor Runner of the Year. Working with Coach Leslie Hogg, she finished 4th in the mile run and 4th nationally in the 800-meter run to garner the NCAA's Division III All-American status. Sereane Watkins-Flynn, Inside Lehman.
When we come back, let's take to the court and introduce you to some women who know their game. We'll see how coaching and experience come together. Plus, art is what you make it. Whether you use a computer or a welding torch, it can produce some very interesting results. All that when we come back.
strong foundation to build a successful team. It's a combination of coaching experience and knowing how to develop talent.
Inside Lehman's Walter Lugo shows us what it takes to make a strong Lehman Lightning women's basketball team.
We're going past here.
As head coach of the Lehman Lightning women's basketball team, Eric Harrison is looking back on nearly a decade of experience here. He has many awards to show for his hard work, but his eyes are on the CUNY championship.
Well, we're looking forward to winning the CUNY championship. We think we've got all of the players in place. We think we've got a great group of kids, and we think this could be the year for Lehman to win their first women's championship. We're regarded as one of the top teams. We've got pretty much a lot of talent. We've got as much talent in the conference as anybody, so we're regarded as a team to contend.
Alongside him is assistant coach Ivelisse Rosario. After an impressive 4-year career on the court, she now calls the shots from the sidelines, sharing her knowledge of the game with up-and-coming players.
She does a great job of knowing the system already. She's going to help us out tremendously, and she also can relate to the players.
I relate to the players. I was his team captain, so I know everything he wants and expects from them as a player and now as a coach.
I love their coaching strategies. They help me, they motivate me, they help me push myself more. They get into my head somewhat and let me know that I can do better than what I'm doing.
In her freshman year, Maria Lord was voted Rookie of the Year. She was also selected to represent Lehman College in upstate New York at the Empire State Games.
Well, it was hard because there was a lot of D1s players, and I played hard.
So how do you get individual players to come together as a team? Coach Harrison does not take all the credit. He relies on assistant coach Ivelisse Rosario, who is team captain herself. Because of the turnover, it's always a challenge in college athletics. Players move on to graduate. That's one concern now with many of the experienced players back on the court after being rookies in the previous season.
Oh, it's really exciting actually because they're making me a better player for when the next year's freshmen enter. I can help them out as well, as much as they are helping me.
If you ask anyone on this team if there's a shortcut to success, they'll agree. There isn't. It just takes one thing.
Hard work, dedication. Well, a lot of hard work.
They have to have the will to win.
It's a matter of getting the players to buy into our system, and then just for the ball to go in the hoop the right way on certain days, and we'll be okay.
Walter Lugo, Inside Lehman.
You know, sculpture comes in many forms, Alicia.
That's true. There are traditional techniques, and thanks to new forms of technology, there are new ways to create art.
Inside Lehman's Victoria Ortega tells us more.
Clay has been used as a sculpting material for thousands of years. The artistry and beauty can be seen in museums throughout New York and the world. Here at Lehman College, students literally get a hands-on approach toward this delicate and ancient art form.
I like every art, and I always try. What I'm doing is a character of mine, so I guess my story is my inspiration, because I know how it's a very big story. It has a lot of history, you know, that I made up. It's fictional. And so most of my characters are modeled so they can adapt, so they can be part of the story. In other words, if the story is dark, my characters would be dark.
By using specially made clay, the sculptor rolls each piece into a ball and then applies it onto a wire frame. This frame makes it easier to move the figure around without the risk of damaging it. There's also a scraping tool used to remove excess clay and detail the figure. There are many different applications for clay sculpture: pottery, statues, ceramic tiles, and even more modern applications such as digital art. Video game designers, as well as 3D animators, use clay figurines as a starting point when developing their 3D image characters. If you're looking to get a little spark out of art, metal sculpting is for you. The artist uses a welding torch as the main tool to form the pieces of metal. Students can purchase metal piping from hardware stores, but it is expensive. Many artists find scrap metal to supply their medium. By melting, bending, and welding the pieces together, a sculptor can transform a few pieces of metal into a work of art.
There's a definite shortage of more realistic artists out there. Everybody wants to be conceptual and abstract and non-objective. And, you know, I'm sure that's wonderful for some people. That's wonderful for the MoMA. But, some people actually like to see things that they can tell what it is.
This method of sculpture does require safety gear. As you can see, the sculptor must wear a welding mask to protect his eyes from the sparks and glare. Protective clothing, such as aprons and overalls, are worn to cover all of the body. This sculpting method can also be used when building stage equipment for a theatrical set. With a creative flair and a welding torch, there's no limit to what an artist can make. As technology advances, art students are getting a chance to try a new age style of sculpting.
Our culture and the way we teach has always kind of integrated creativity with the digital work, and it's something that we have to really continue with in a very strong way.
Hot wire cutting works by scanning a pattern into a computer. The scan is then used in the Chrome design software that controls the metal filament wire. This program allows the machine to track the scan information, giving the hot metal filament a guided path to follow.
The Styrofoam program has a broad range of applications. Basically, you can do anything from make a maquette, which is a tiny model, which is meant to be at a larger scale, so that you can work in a small scale efficiently.
Professor Charles Seplowin enjoys the benefits of this technology. He created art with foam and then sent the computerized instructions to a facility that uses a plasma cutter to sculpt steel. What began as an idea on a screen is now larger than life for all to see. Victoria Ortega, Inside Lehman.
And that's our show. But before we say goodbye, we want to thank all our talented reporters and our crew for all their hard work.
Thanks for being with us. We'll see you next time for more news from Inside Lehman. Thanks for watching.